All right, Laura, we got people coming on now.
I believe so. Let's see. Let me pull up the top. Yeah, I can't tell who's on yet, but welcome everybody. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, we're going to give it just a minute or two for folks to jump on.
Here it is. Yeah, we've got 65. We're climbing.
Okay,
70.
yeah, a
Yeah.
whole bunch of people that signed up, so that's a good thing. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Uh,
This was a good one to prep for, Dr. Carter. I learned even more about myself and how it relates to the narcissist in my life. And I hope that with your clinical expertise and then with me, been there, done that, I hope that we can really dig deep today and really figure out some things.
well, the reason we chose this particular topic the last one we picked up on about 6 or 7 weeks ago, the malignant narcissist. We talked about how there's some individuals that are so far down on the spectrum that they're just impossible to deal with.
Yeah.
This one, we're going to be talking about who you are and how you engage with that narcissistic person. And there's kind of an unfortunate element here, Laura, in that the healthier you are and the more positive characteristics you bring to the table, the narcissist is over there just thinking, all right, how can I make this work for me? And
Right.
you're not thinking in a pathological way. They are. And so it kind of sets up an odd combination here. Then we're going to be talking about that. So, okay, we're going to give it just a little bit more. You want to start diving in?
Yeah, why don't we do that? And just again, everyone, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Um, there is a Q&A box at the top of your screen. I believe you can click on it. We will take questions at the end. This webinar will last about 90 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour of content with Dr. C and me sharing with you. And then we will get through as many questions as we can before the end of the webinar. So welcome to the Empath and the Narcissist. Of course, you know the esteemed Dr. Carter here, and then myself, Laura Carranza. I'm the person who has had a mom who's a narcissist and then married a more malignant version of her. And of course, Dr. Carter has decades of experience in clinical psychotherapy. So Dr. C, take it away.
Well, we're going to talk about the empath and their unique relationship with a narcissist. And you see that we have our nice PowerPoint that our super duper person, Maddie Madison, has put together for us, and such a nice job here. But I want to start by talking about that word empathy. Of course, when we use the word empath, we're talking about someone who has a natural inclination toward empathy. So let's just make sure that we kind of go through and get a good idea of what this is. And as I'm going through this, I want you to just kind of use this as a bit of a checklist, if you will, to determine, where you are with respect to these kind of characteristics. And it can help you understand if you're going to truly identify yourself as that empath. Now, when we talk about the word empathy, we're talking about the ability to put yourself in the other person's position, and you're able to develop an understanding of that individual from that person's perspective. And it's one thing to say, I understand you, but the empath goes a little bit deeper than that. It's like, okay, something's going on inside of you. I really want to know who you are and why you think the way you do. I want to know what goes into the making of your conclusions and your reactions. And so the empath, or using the use of empathy, implies that you're willing to see things from that other person's perspective strongly. And you basically are so tuned into their feelings that you actually experience with their subjective experiences. So it's more than just intellectual knowing. In fact, Laura, maybe one of these days we can do another one on the dark empath. Narcissists can sometimes give the impression that they're tuning into you, but what
Yes.
they're doing is they're gathering data, and
Yes.
they're trying to figure out, okay, what is it that I can learn about you so that later on I can use it against you? And it's frankly very insidious. The healthy use of empathy, though, it's truly your way of saying, I want to go into your world with you and experience things from your perspective, and it's for good and connecting kind of reasons. for that. Laura?
You mentioned how they gather information, and we've talked about this, in videos. Dr. C and I have, and they certainly do. In the beginning, you may have this. You meet the narcissist, and I'm just going to use he because that's my experience. But interchange gender as necessary. But you meet this narcissist and he's charming and you're like, oh, and he tells you all about him, but really he just scratches, or the narcissist just scratches the surface, right? And you get to tell a little bit about yourself, and gradually they begin to ask questions, so you're talking about more, but always centers around something that they can get from you to use against you later. And for me, the narcissist in my life was able to scratch the surface and find the pain that I had associated with my family. And then my mother, who is a narcissist that at the time I didn't know was a narcissist. So he would later use what she said against me and would pretend to take my mother's side in any disagreements or what have you. And it made it just very uncomfortable at family situations because I felt like he had the power along with my mother. I mean, it's like 2 against 1, 2 narcissists against little Laura here. It was very, very manipulative.
All right,
And
it's so important for us to acknowledge that when we talk about empathy, as you're seeing it on the screen here, this is not a technique that
right.
you use as you engage with other individuals. It's simply a manner of being. And
Yes.
with narcissists, if they try to give the appearance of empathy, and some of them just bypass this altogether, but if they
Yeah.
do try to do it, it's a technique. Let's go to the next
All right.
portion of the PowerPoint, and I want to kind of get an idea of how empathy actually plays out. And again, if you're that kind of person that goes into the empathetic style, then you can see that there are multiple ingredients that are a part of it. And you'll notice on our screen here, these are really healthy characteristics. Sometimes people who have that empath style may think, well, am I just somebody that's, too weak, or am I just like a little bunny rabbit that the lion is going to come and devour? And we're going to go with the notion that says, not at all. In fact, the deeper you go into this mindset of empathy, you have strong character. These are some of the most healthy ingredients you can have. So let's kind of go through this real quickly. When you have empathy, you're naturally predisposed towards being a person of compassion.
Mhm.
You genuinely care about another person's needs and feelings. You'll notice that in the next one, you have reflective listening. For example, if somebody comes along and says, this is what happened to me, and these are some of the things that I experienced because of that. Some people will say, yeah, man, that happened to me too. And they just hijack the conversation. As the empathetic person, their natural inclination is to say, well, let me make sure that I have this right. And so it's
Right.
like, oh, so you were anticipating such and such, but this happened instead. And so they enter into that experience and they reflect back to that person what they
Right.
understand them to be saying. And it's a very healthy style of engaging. It's the empath way of saying, I'm trying to tune into not just what you're saying on the surface, but what's going on behind the scenes. When you have empathy, you have an anticipation of another person's needs and feelings. You just naturally want to go in that kind of direction. Who are you? And as you speak, what kind of needs does this imply? What kind of feelings are you experiencing right now? With empathy, you'll notice the next one, patience.
Mhm.
Is a natural byproduct of that. You don't have an immediate need to just fit that person into a groove. The empathetic person, rather than, as an example, let's suppose that someone is speaking to me and they say, thus and such happened to me earlier today. And I may think, well, that didn't happen to me today. And so they, rather than just slowing down and saying, well, tell me more about that, and having that patient approach, the non-empathetic person just wants to get you inside the group to make them feel comfortable. Uh,
Mhm.
the empath in empathy, you tend to have lots of calm, composure. You have a sense that says, I'm bringing something good and healthy to the equation here. I like that about myself. You'll notice that they have deeply refined listening skills beyond mere words.
Mhm.
There's so many times when I'm in my counseling office and someone says something like, this has happened to me this in this kind of way, and I had this experience. And then let's suppose that I just go beyond the words and I just pick up on their body language, or I know something about their deep history. And I may say something like, you've talked with me about this before, and I can tell this resonates real strongly. This is something that I know you're struggling with, or this is something that excites you, and you hear more than just what you're saying. You pick up on the essence of that individual. That's a very strong characteristic to have. With empathy, you desire to coordinate. You're a team player. Empathic persons tend to have a real strong nurturing and encouraging style. They're curious. They want to know the personal dimensions in others. Laura, I'll give you a kind of a funny little illustration. Jennifer, my wife, she and I may be, let's say, at a social engagement or around some people. And when we get in the car and we go home, I may say something like, hey, did you know that so-and-so over here had this, that, the other happened to them? And it may be something about their deep past or something like that. And she'll say, well, how did you find that out? And my
Right.
response
I
is,
know.
I asked. I walked straight
Yeah.
into the front door. When I get to know people, I want to know, who are you and what makes you tick. That's just part of the way you do it. And then with empathy, you also have a willingness to enter into the vulnerable personal exchanges. That kind of communication simply does not blow you away. In fact, it's something that charges you up. So when we look at the whole notion of empathy, it has many, many different dimensions to it. And as you see here on the screen, it's a very, very personable, decent, and good approach towards living. Now, Laura, I'm kind of curious to get your reactions as you take a look at all the things that we have here about what empathy is and how it's displayed. What tends to stand out most with you?
I I would think compassion for me, because I'm definitely an empath, you guys. The deeply refined listening skills, hearing beyond words. Something just came to mind when you said that, and like Jennifer, looked at you, Dr. C, and goes, "Well, how did you learn that?" And you're like, "Well, I just got to know the person." We pick up on nonverbal cues easily. It's almost as if we can read a person's mind. We can't, but it's almost that way. We can just sense their aura, their energy. And I was thinking about, I was at the grocery store early this morning getting some things, and there's this man who helps people to the car for groceries. They make you do it, and his name's Bob. And I'm one of the people who's gotten to know Bob, who's in his 80s. I know that his daughter's in France. He hasn't met his new granddaughter yet because of COVID. That he likes Madeline cookies from the Starbucks inside. I've learned all these things just because of asking questions, and I'm genuinely interested in how this man's doing. And Carson was in there. My son was in there with me a few days ago, and he goes, "How do you know all this?" And I thought, well, I sensed one day he was sad. And I said, "Bob, really, how are you doing?" And I meant it. It wasn't just
Laura,
like,
that's a classic illustration. It's not a
yes,
technique, it's just what you are.
it's just who I am. And I want all of you to know, many of you, if not all of you, are empaths because you're in this webinar. It's a gift. We just have to learn not to give it all to the narcissist and sacrifice ourselves, because they will destroy us. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
Uh,
That's what I got, Dr. C.
Laura, I have an illustration going way back early in my career. Actually, I was still in my doctoral internship, and okay, I'm showing my age. This was like 1979 or 80, something like that. Whatever number of years ago that was. And some person called into the clinic that I was working at, and they had to get in to see someone today.
Mhm.
Well, the only person that was available was me, the rookie.
Yeah.
Like, sure, go ahead, bring them on in. And so
Yeah.
this lady came in, and she had a long and convoluted story with many moving parts. And it took quite a while for her to get her story out. And as we got deeper and deeper, I began realizing I'm not going to be able to share with her all the brilliance that I had as a doctoral student. And because I had so much that I wanted to tell her. But
Sure.
I let her talk, and I drew out some descriptions from her. And our time was up, and I was actually feeling a little frustrated because I was unable to give her all the answers that I had in my head. But nonetheless, as we finished, the lady went and she was standing at the door ready to exit, had her hand on the doorknob, and she turned around and said to me, "You have no idea how helpful you've been. Nobody ever listens to me. And
Oh,
it's been so good to know that you took the time to hear what I had to say." Now, I needed to hear that at the time because I obviously in graduate school, I'd heard all about empathy and all of that. But, real life experience, knowing that people are craving to be heard and to be known,
mm,
that's empathy. And the person who has that empathic style says, "Sign me up. I want to do that." And just the very willingness to go in that position is in and of itself quite healing. And so, Laura, like you just said, that's something that certainly you want to maximize and give priority to, because it simply is a very positive kind of characteristic to bring to other individuals.
it's a gift. Don't be ashamed of it. Be proud of your
Right. And,
ability.
and by the way, let's also just reinforce those of you who are already in with us. If you have questions along these lines for our Q&A time in the chat space, make sure you drop your questions in there. Madison's going to help us out as we go into the latter part. So just make sure that you
Yeah.
go ahead and put your questions in there. Well, let's take a look a little bit further, shall we, Laura? Let's look at
Yeah.
how is
How do we
identifying
identify the
the impact.
empath, right? All right, Dr. C, here you go.
All right, what do we have? What do we have next?
Identifying the empath.
Yeah,
We can just switch off reading these boxes. Some people are more genetically predisposed toward empathy than others.
Can you take it down to the next part there, Laura, on the PowerPoint?
Oh, what, can you not see
Yeah,
it?
there you go. There you go. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
That has.
Okay. Some people are more genetically predisposed toward empathy than others. I was taught, Dr.
Which is
C,
fascinating.
yeah, which is fascinating. This is what I was taught, Dr. C, and I've wanted to have this conversation with you, and we haven't had a chance. I was taught that almost everyone is born with like a seed of empathy, and if it's watered and it grows through like a child mimicking the actions of a mother or father, or when a kiddo falls down on the playground and my son would go over and help pick up little Joe, I would say, "Good job, Carson. It's really nice of you to help your friends out." That he's an empath. I've got my hands full with that one. He mimicked what I've done and understood my praise to keep doing that, to help others. What do you think, Dr. C? Are some people just born without that seed? Or
Well, here's a very different kind of way that I look at it.
okay.
My wife is ridiculously talented musically. She was
Mhm,
actually trained as an opera singer,
mhm,
and she can play the piano, and she's very artistic in many other kind of ways. Well, frankly, I'm not. It's just a characteristic that I don't have, all that artistic expression. She's more naturally predisposed. She has other family members who are in that direction. And so if you can think, some people are mathematically inclined, some people are attentive to detail, and they're just individuals that have these dispositions. Well, we can also say the same with respect to personality traits. Some
mhm,
people are more reserved, some are more extroverted, some people have more of this inclination toward empathy.
mhm,
But
mhm,
then, Laura, as you were implying, we have a genetic predisposition, many do, and some folks are already 3 or 4 steps ahead of the crowd. That's the empath. But then, as they learn it through other kinds of instructions and means, it can just be that much more strong and pronounced to the extent that it becomes a well refined kind of characteristic.
okay.
Which kind of takes us to that next thing. It can be learned.
Mhm,
And just like you said, early modeling instruction, that's something that goes along with it.
mhm. And then strong emphasis on emotional intelligence, which is just that ability to connect with people and understand, if I do this, it's going to hurt someone's feelings. If I do this, I'm going to help that person. Some people just don't have that. They may not have a filter, and the narcissist in my life in my adulthood, Shane, no filter, would just say what he thought. And he left a lot of damaged people in his wake when I was married to him.
Well, narcissists don't really have a need to go into the emotional thing because it's all about
Mm-mm.
themselves. Now,
Right.
they want you to understand their emotions, but they don't really tune into other individuals. And so,
Why should
uh,
they, right? They're getting what they need. Yeah.
that's right. They're looking for supply. They're not looking to be an understanding individual.
Yeah.
Laura, I like that next one too. The exposure
Yeah.
to
The
multiple
exposure to
groups.
multiple groups, types, and age groups. I'll let you expound on that one, Dr. Carter. I was making some notes here.
Well, narcissists are inclined to say, I want everybody in front of me to get inside my groove with me. And I want you to think the way I think. I want you to have the same opinions that I have. I want you to like the same people and hate the same people that I just don't like.
Mhm.
Whereas the empath is one that says, there's so much variety out there. It would be ludicrous for me to assume that everybody has to think or feel or respond the same as I do. What makes you tick? And what is with your style and your background or your unique experiences? Talk with me about why you would do or think or feel the way you do. Or you mentioned your son Carson as a teenager. Well, I can promise you, teenagers don't think the same about certain things as somebody who's my age. I just turned 67. If I'm with Carson, he's going to think differently than I do. And it's not one of us is correct or one of us is incorrect. Seniors think differently than teens. All right,
Right.
let's make some room for that. That's
Yeah.
what empaths do,
Right.
and it's a strong suit that they have. Okay.
Yeah. That you're making me laugh because sometimes I just look at him, I go, I love you, but you are such a knucklehead. Make a good decision.
In other words, you're 15 years old, and I had to go
Yeah.
back and remember what a 15-year-old kid thinks like.
Yeah. They
Let's
don't
continue
think. They
on.
go, ball, squirrel, what's fun right now? Anyway. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. What do we
The
have?
empath takes the time to ask questions about others' backstories. And you just mentioned that. What makes you tick? How were you raised? Where were you raised? Oh, you were raised on a farm. Immediately we start thinking that person must be a hard worker.
Yeah.
We really want to know more than just the surface of a person. What are they about? What can I learn about them? And we're drawn to people that we like that way because we've scratched
Right.
the surface. It's not just a surface relationship for empaths. I personally, as an empath, don't have time to have those, as I would say, shallow conversations. I was at a friend's house. This was years ago, and all these moms are sitting around the kitchen table, and for an hour and a half, they talked about what washing machine they were going to buy. I thought I was going to lose my mind because
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just a washing machine. Can we talk about how our kids are doing and how they're playing
Yeah.
together on the playground and how your son's broken leg is healing? Can we dig a little deeper? But those people couldn't. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what empaths do. We need more.
Laura, I have an illustration. There was a woman who had been through depression, and
Mm-hmm.
it was so severe that she actually had to be hospitalized briefly to kind of get
Oh,
all of the medicines
mhm.
corrected and all of that.
Yeah.
And when she came away from there, she explained to me, she said, I kind of feel embarrassed by the fact that I had to go to the hospital, or she felt like there was some sort of a, stigma associated with it. Somewhere along the line, a friend of hers found out about this and approached her and said, I've never had really strong issues with depression, but I've had such and such. And this woman had been through a divorce. She said, I went through a divorce and I know that I had all sorts of emotions churning on the inside of me.
Mhm.
So you've had your issue. I've had my issue. What was that like for you? And so she was willing to go into that lady's background. And the one who was depressed later came to me and said, it was so helpful for me for somebody to say, I want to know what it is about you. And she was willing to talk about her backstory.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what empaths do. Just what you were saying. It's like, there's a place for small talk, but for an hour talking about wash machines, maybe that's a little much.
Right.
uh, but empaths, it's like, no, I want to know you, and if it means that I have to reveal some things about me, I'm more than happy to do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Exactly. And on that note, just to um, Dr. Carter, as empaths, sometimes we reveal too much too soon before we let those people earn that we earn their trust. They earn our trust, right? So I would just encourage all of you, and we'll get to more of this at the end. Is don't reveal too much too fast, because so many times I want a connection that I become vulnerable too early on, whether it's
Right.
a romantic relationship or just trying to make a new friend. And Brene Brown has some good videos on that you can pull up on YouTube about being vulnerable too soon, because sometimes we just give too much too soon with people who don't deserve it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're going to get to that in just a minute when we talk about when you encounter that narcissist. Just to kind of finish this, basically, when you are dealing with an empath, these are people that have a history of service.
Mm-hmm.
They're helpful, they're conscientious. That's one of my favorite words, conscientiousness.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I won't get into there's the five characteristics that are considered the biggest identifiers
Mm-hmm.
of a healthy personality, and the conscientiousness is right at the top of the list. They don't mind being domestic in their choice. In other words, they don't mind helping you out and being the servant and washing dishes or doing whatever. Narcissists like, don't make me do that. uh, Empaths, they like expansive thinking. They want to explore new ideas rather than thinking I've got to get everybody inside my tight box. They're thinking, how can I grow and come up with things that are new? So they go way beyond a narcissist binary thinking. And then another part of the identifying of the emphasis is the empath is they have a strong emphasis on character
Their
development.
development.
It's good to have achievements and things of that nature, but the empath is one that says, well, you can tell a person's greatness or goodness by taking a look at what kind of character they aspire to.
Mm-hmm.
So these would be some of the things that are a part of the empath. Now, Laura, I want us to go to the some of the meat of this. Let's take a look at the next portion. When an empath, excuse me, when a narcissist encounters the empath. Okay.
Here we go.
All
Yeah.
right. Now,
What
first
does the
thing,
narcissist say when they meet someone like
I
us?
hit the jackpot.
Yes.
So when you're the kind of person that has all of these wonderful characteristics that we're talking about, and again, I can't emphasize those kind of qualities, as far as I'm concerned, implies you get it, you understand that life is about connecting. The narcissist is over there thinking, oh, this is going to be so good for me. And they have warped ideas about what it means to have love and
Mm-hmm.
loyalty and commitment, because to them, it's all about making you conform to their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they're approaching you thinking, how can I exploit you? What's in it for me? And so there you are with all of these wonderful, healthy characteristics. And the narcissist is like, okay, we're going to work this and let me see if I can come up. And so they begin with the idea that you exist to make them feel good. And unfortunately, I say this unfortunately, when you bring out or when you show your empathetic strength, this can play right into the narcissist because you're willing to be kind and
Mm-hmm.
understanding and helpful. But then the narcissist is not thinking about reciprocating it at all. They're thinking about receiving it, receiving it, receiving it. And their favorite word is more. Give me more, give me more, give me more. We call it narcissistic supply. And that being the case, there's an odd advantage that narcissists might have when they pick up on your empathetic skills because they're looking at the relationship as a competition. You, as the empath, you're not thinking that way at all. And so they're thinking, oh, I am so going to win and I am so going to grind you into the ground if I have to.
Right.
Now, I'm going to ask a very basic question of you, Laura. Does any of this look familiar?
It all looks familiar. It all looks familiar.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes, that my role on this earth with both a mother and a subsequent husband was to make them happy. As the child of a narcissist, remember we've learned this, is that we were brought into this world for that narcissist so we could shine the light back on them. We were expected to meet their needs spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, physically, all of that, when really it should be the parent meeting the child's needs in those ways. And then same thing, it's a repeat. Those of us who are raised by narcissists were drawn to that. So we often enter into romantic relationships with narcissists in our adulthood. Yeah, I guess the word that keeps coming to mind is I felt pulverized by the narcissist in my adulthood. I was exhausted. I tried so hard to make him happy, and
Yeah.
it never works. And it was never reciprocated.
When you have a healthy kind of relationship, and we have another page with more, but you look at what the narcissist is thinking and you compare it to the empath, and you're on such different wavelengths.
Hmm.
The narcissist goes into a relationship thinking, how might I be able to make your life go a bit better because of my presence in it? That's a
Hmm.
wonderful way to think. Whereas the narcissist is thinking, well, since you're in my presence, how can I make you do my bidding and do whatever it is that I want? And so they're going to exploit and use you in whatever way they can come up with. And as a result, they can be very demanding and they can be very overbearing. Let's take a look at the next page here on our PowerPoint. Uh, right there. Narcissists can give the impression, maybe at times, well, I'm loyal too. But in fact, they're setting you up. Uh,
Yes.
they want to set the stage so that they wind up being the dominant person. And
Yes.
so a narcissist interprets the empath's agreeable nature as an invitation. Okay, you're over there trying to figure out how we can get along with each other.
Mhm.
I think I can dominate that. This is an inroad for them to be controlling,
Mhm.
because the empath is not interested in trying to control people. The empath is interested in knowing who you are. And
Right.
so when you're with that narcissist and they pick up on these kind of ingredients as you, here come the demands. They're not at all bashful about letting it be known. Okay, here's what you need to do. These are your duties. These are your
Mhm.
obligations. So the demands emerge early and often, and they're trying to take advantage of you. And then if you show any kind of disagreement, if you have any kind of negative reaction, they're over there thinking, what's the deal? Why
Mhm.
aren't you giving me what I want? And
Mhm.
the empath can feel so confused by that. It's like, who would think that way?
Mhm.
Uh, aren't we here to encourage each other as opposed to just gimme, gimme, gimme? Isn't
Mhm.
that what we could do here? But instead, the narcissist doesn't think that way at all. And then if you're not willing to go along with their duties and their demands and their criticisms, they're going to start putting shame on you. And
Mhm. Yes.
unfortunately, empaths can be so desirous to be helpful and kind and friendly toward other individuals that when a narcissist more or less insinuates, well, you're not doing it right, or that's not good enough, then the empath can be vulnerable to that shame communication. And the narcissist is going to wind up playing you just like a drum.
Right.
So here we are. They'll try to give you the impression that they're into the relationship when in fact it's all about them declaring and maintaining the control over you, imposing duty and all of that.
Mhm.
It's a formula for a very unhealthy pattern of living. But here you bring healthiness, they bring unhealthiness, and instead of you bringing them up, they tend to bring you down.
Right. Right. And that shame communication is such a strong way of communication for the narcissist. And it really wrecks our worlds, Dr. Carter. It's really hard because the things even if you're not with a narcissist any longer, the things that they've said and done in the past to make you feel like you're not enough, you're less than, those little voices stay in your head. And you're like, well, of course I messed that up at work because I remember he said I wasn't good enough, or my mom said that I'm not pretty enough or smart enough to handle that. It is a trigger for me. And I know for many others too. If
Well,
I'm
and
shamed in the workplace or whatever, even if it's an unintentional shaming.
right. The empath is thinking, I'd like for us to just have understanding. That's
Right.
what he's all about.
Right.
Or the empath is thinking, how can we take our knowledge of each other and turn it into teamwork? Again, that's part of what empathy is all about,
Mhm.
as we mentioned right at the top. And the narcissist is thinking, okay, I want you to think that way. You need to be on my team. You need to understand me. And they're just going to go completely counter. And part of the problem that an empath can have is they so don't think in that manipulative and exploitive kind of way that they're trying to bring the narcissist around to that healthier form of communication. Come
Mhm.
on, let's talk. I just spoke not that long ago with a husband whose wife is ridiculously overbearing and pushy and whining and all of that. And he was talking to me about how over and over he tries to explain to her, we don't have to do it this way, or why do you have to talk to me in that tone of voice? And he's caught up in the snare of that narcissistic individual, because he's thinking, I know how to do relationships, please join me. And she's over there thinking, I don't do that. And
Right.
so it sets up that inconsistent manner that they have with each other. And inevitably, the more negative person is the one who, quote, wins. And that's how
Right.
it tends to work. And so if you're that empath, you kind of have to remind yourself there are plenty of people out there that have that strong narcissistic bent who don't share the same healthy ingredients as me. And I
Mhm.
have to come to terms with what that means. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Here we go.
Yeah, let's take a look at what some of the warning signs are that the empath has to come to terms with. And I know we have quite a few things there.
We do. The
Okay.
first one, my best traits are being used against me. We ask ourselves the question, does that mean I'm not really as nice as I think I am? I remember feeling that way because the narcissist would say, you just think you're so sweet, but really you're a mean Laura. You're mean. People think you're mean. Even your parents don't like you. And you're like, wait a minute, like I've been a doormat for you, buddy. Yeah.
Well, and that goes straight into that next one, Laura.
Yes.
I'm being gaslit.
Mhm, mhm.
Uh, Instead of them saying, I really appreciate those healthy characteristics, it's like, why would you do something like that? And
Right.
they want to create confusion. If you're someone who says, well, I want to tune into this person, or I want to have an honest exchange about our feelings and our needs, then they can come back and say, oh, you just think you're so special, or you think that everything
Yeah.
has to revolve around you. And instead of saying, I
Yeah.
really appreciate what you bring, they want to create confusion. And then you walk away thinking, well, maybe I'm the problem here, which is
Mhm.
precisely what they want you to think. I mean, does that sound familiar, Laura?
It sounds very familiar, Dr. Carter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still does. All of you, my parents came to visit last weekend, and I found myself reverting back to that role of the little girl trying to please my mother. And I was like, stop it, stop it. But we did things her way, and I just gave in because I didn't want to push back. But you could just see she was ready to bite my head off if I didn't do things exactly as she wanted to, and I would have had to go on the defensive.
Well,
So
then see, let's take a look at that next thing. When you're the empath and that narcissist is coming at you with all of their criticism and second
yes.
guessing or shaming and anger and rage, how many times do you find yourself being pulled into a defensive posture? You feel like you have to justify who you are. You feel like
Mhm,
you have to rationalize why you feel as you do.
mhm,
And you constantly have this sense that says that person is on the prowl. They're going to look for something wrong with
mhm,
me. Therefore, I have to give great explanations, or I have to justify. And then your anxiety is heightened, your insecurity is heightened, you second guess yourself. That's what happens when you bring these healthy characteristics and that narcissist comes on with that pouncing, overbearing, controlling style. It's insidious the way it works. Now let's continue on here as to how this plays out. Now, Laura, did you ever find when you were dealing with these narcissistic individuals, especially when they're so strongly involved with you, that it's like, you think I'm depleted?
Well, you don't have the energy. It says withdraw from former friends and allies. You don't have the energy to do anything but try to manage the life that you are in with a narcissist. I mean, every day I would get up and say, Dr. Carter, I would say, okay, how am I going to survive today? I was so depleted that the thought of having coffee with a friend and trying to put on a happy face, there was no way I could do it. Yeah,
I,
it's,
I recall speaking to a woman who her kids were involved in sports and music kind of things and all. And her comment would be, when we go out in public and when my partner is with me, I don't even want to be there.
mhm,
Because I feel like I'm having to put on a show, I'm having to act. And so there would be times when she would either just go and just be more quiet than she normally might have been, or she wouldn't go at all. And it can just wear you out. Uh,
mhm,
then back in the private moments, noticing the next one there, you wind up getting caught in arguments with
mhm.
that narcissist. Why are you doing this to me? Or why can't we just have this instead of that? And you want them to be more tuned into the relational dimension. And what happens? You get squashed. You're
Yes.
told to shut up, or your feelings are ridiculous, or you don't get it, or you don't understand things. And so when you're that empath and you're wanting to emphasize the relational dimension, uh, that narcissist is thinking, look, I'm doing everything right. The problem here is you.
Mhm.
So that being the case, you wind up struggling at times with bitterness and resentment. And then the narcissist has no problem whatsoever, as we mentioned earlier, in shaming you for being what you are. And then, particularly when you show your bitterness and resentment, they'll say, see, look
Oh,
at you. You
yeah.
think you're such a nice person, but I wish everybody knew the person that I know because you're no good.
Yeah, I'm just trying
And
to point out what you're doing wrong, and I don't know why you're resentful. If anyone should be resentful, it's me. And you know what? I am resentful of you, Laura, or whomever. Yeah, that's how they argue. It's just like
yeah,
these circles.
yeah. And then uh,
Crazy making.
that last one there, others can express to you a concern about the narcissist behavior, and yet sometimes you think, well, but I need to put on a good front. We got the period in the wrong place, and so publicly you don't want others to think that you're struggling as much as you really are,
Mhm.
and it creates a cycle between you and the narcissist where you think, I can't afford to let me be me. It's going to create more problems than it solves, and so it can cause you to go into that shutdown mode or that argumentative mode, and before you know it, you feel like the worst is coming out of me. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
so I know that many of the people that are watching here can relate to so much of what we're talking about. And this is one of these kind of things where your best ingredients can somehow or another be used against you by someone that is, in fact, an exploiter, a
Mhm.
user, and someone who says, I don't want to go into the personal dimension. I want dominance. That's my
Mhm.
game plan. And you're over there thinking, but I don't relate to that. And
Right.
they're thinking, good, because that means I can dominate you even more so.
Right.
And it's an insidious game.
It is. It is. And it just can destroy you. So
Okay.
let's talk about boundaries and the need that empaths have for boundaries when it comes, especially to the narcissist.
Okay. Well, all of this to say that unfortunately, we can't expect that narcissist to say, I want to blend with you.
Mhm.
In a healthy world, we would have no particular need to establish overwhelmingly strong boundaries because there would be enough willingness to blend and coordinate that we wouldn't have to worry about the other person's response. But first and foremost, we got to recognize, well, I do need to have boundaries with that person.
Yes.
And boundaries begins first by you affirming yourself. I'm hoping that you as an empath can go back and think, wait a minute, let's take a look at what I bring to the equation. I'm the kind of person that likes to care about other individuals.
Mhm.
I want to know other people from the inside out. What's so bad about that? I
Yeah.
don't need to be
Mhm.
apologizing for who I
Mhm.
am. And as basic as that is, that's such an important thing for you as an empath to hold on to. The narcissist wants to let you know you don't measure up, and the reflective thought says, I don't measure up according to who?
Right.
According to the narcissist. All right, let's pause on that. The narcissist is not a healthy person. The narcissist is coming at you with all sorts of their own psychic tension and unresolved internal conflict. And all of this dominance is their way of saying, I require you to be supplied to me because I'm empty
Mhm.
inside. And you're supposed to keep filling me up. And I want to take your nurturing and your caring style and make you be whatever I need so that I can skip along into the sunset feeling pretty good about myself.
Mhm.
But I'm hoping that you as an empath can recognize my manner of life requires no apology, no matter what that kind of person says at the beginning.
Mhm.
And I know, Laura, you and I have talked multiple times that there is so much of a desire that you've had through the years that says, I, I'm not going to have to apologize for who I am,
No.
and that's such a therapeutic insight for you to park on. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, absolutely. Because when you learn that you don't have to apologize for who you are, you're taking ownership in yourself and you're saying, I'm okay because you are. You're enough just like you are. That's why I say what I say at the end of every video. And the narcissist is going to do everything that that person can to whittle that down where you don't feel like you're enough, but you are enough. And
Remind us of your comments.
you are worthy, you are loved, and you are enough.
Yes, and those are such basic thoughts,
But
and
when
yet,
you're the victim of narcissistic abuse or now a survivor, because that's what all of you are, is we don't think that way. You have to build back up to that, Dr. Carter. And part of that is that next bullet point, back to the basics. You learn, who am I? What do
yes,
I stand for? And I had to go through this process over and over to learn, who am I? Well, I'm a mother to Carson. I'm a Christian woman, a woman of faith. I love my job. I love working with Dr. Carter to help others. That what principles do I stand for? Honesty, trust, integrity. Why do I make sense? I am who I am. I believe my purpose. God put me here on this earth to go through what I went through to help you. That's what I've come up with. And two things I've learned, because I can get on my soapbox about this,
go for it, go
is
for it.
I remember being told as a little girl, you are the most selfish person that ever walked the face of this earth. And I started thinking, when did mom say that? Well, it's when I wasn't doing exactly what she needed me to do to shine the light on her. No, you're not selfish. It's self preservation when you need to do something to take care of yourself. Our version of selfish, when we're this kind and nice and we're such givers, is just self preservation. The narcissist, that's selfish. So I want you to think about that when someone says you're being selfish. You're not. It's just self care, self preservation, because nobody else is going to take care of you like you do. So
Laura, you're speaking with a certain amount of conviction there, girl.
I've learned. That's
I
like those
love it.
are the things that have saved my life is
All
to,
right.
yeah, I'm not selfish. I've got to take care of me so I can take care of my son and my crazy labradoodles. And
Yeah.
yeah,
By the way, did y'all notice Gus back there in my chair? He blends in so much with the color of the chair, you can barely see him, but there he is. Anyway,
yeah, he's
Gus is,
quiet.
I,
He hasn't snored
I'm
yet.
gonna have to show him my notes because I think he's asleep right now. Okay, I want to make a comment about the topic of boundaries, especially that one about back to the basics. Who
Mhm.
am I? We often think of boundaries as creating an external wall that we don't allow others to penetrate.
Right.
And okay, there are times when that actually can happen, but boundaries, first and foremost, is about building an internal definition of who you are.
Mhm.
And going back to what you were saying, Laura, I do stand for things that are good. I do make sense, and there are certain core values and principles and standards that are in me, and I'm going to let that be central to what I am. This is not about me keeping people out. This is
Mhm.
about me being true to who I am and not letting somebody rob me of what makes me distinct and unique. And so,
Mhm.
if you're an empath, we go back to no apologies needed. I know who I am. I know what I believe in. What I stand for is right and decent. I make sense. Now, it takes us to that next thing that we have here, and that's our word assertiveness. When you are an empath and you're dealing with a strongly narcissistic person who has
Mhm.
more than enough directives for you, you are going to need to be an assertive person.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things, and Laura, I know that this is something that you've been working on, and I've done anger workshops for many years. Assertiveness is a word that sometimes empaths have some difficulty with.
Yes.
Um, it's like, in fact, we often think of assertiveness as meaning, well, if you don't like what I'm doing, then that's just tough luck for you. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. That's not assertiveness.
No.
That's aggressiveness. Assertiveness, and you used the term just a minute ago, is your sense of self-preservation. I'm going to stand upon my own
Mhm.
goodness, and
Mhm.
I'm going to stand on my decency. I'm going to hold firmly to my convictions. I'm going to follow through with the basic needs that I have.
Mhm.
And if you want to come against me, Mr. and Mrs. Narcissist, that's your prerogative, but I'm going to go ahead and chart my course. And it's something that's good. Part
Mhm.
of the definition of assertiveness means I'm leaning into things that are right and appropriate. And if the narcissist wants to think otherwise, that's certainly their prerogative. But I recognize that's a troubled person there. And they've got such a need for control that they're unable to see their insecurity. Therefore, I need to act assertively. And if it's on an individualized basis only, that's part of my boundaries. That's what I'm going to do. What do you think, Laura? Is that something that you can just turn on like a switch and it's just no big deal? I can do that real easy? Or
No, I
what's
think you
been your
have to
experience?
work on becoming assertive, and you have to understand that the narcissist won't like it. Even when you say, it could be something as simple as where you're going to grab a bite to eat. And I prefer we go to Tex-Mex, like you mentioned. That's being assertive. I prefer this. And they may not like it. Well, I heard it all the time. We eat Tex-Mex all the time. Well, you asked me what I wanted to do. That's what I'd like to do. That's not
Right.
being aggressive. It's just saying that's what I want to do today.
It
Or
can
I
be
don't want
on
to be late for
small
couples
things, it
therapy
can be on
again.
the large things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember Dr. Carter, when we did couples therapy, we had 5 different counselors over 10 years. And the narcissist was late to every single appointment. So I developed a boundary and I said, listen, Shane, if we're going to go to couples therapy and you're not ready to go in time to get there on time, I'm going to go ahead and go. And so I did. And oh, he was hot. He was hot. But I thought, we're paying for this. I'm going to be on time because it's the right thing to do. And I did. And he
Yeah.
was never on time. But that's what we're talking about. And I wasn't being ugly. I just said, hey, if you're not ready, I'm going to go.
Yep. Let's go to the next page because it ties into what you're saying here as well. Um, One of the things as you begin to establish your boundaries and do what Laura is saying right here is the narcissist isn't going to just shrug and say, "Oh, my bad." Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to push against you.
Mhm.
And so, what I'm hoping you, as the empath, can focus on is that inclination that you have to defend yourself. And I
Mhm.
have a question that I love to ask. I've been asking this question, probably hundreds of times to people, and that
I
is,
love that. Mhm.
why defend that which needs no defense? I don't need to defend myself. Let the goodness and the decency of who I am speak for itself. And
Mhm.
if the narcissist over there says, well, it's not good enough for me, it's like, okay, that's your opinion.
Mhm.
My opinion is I still don't need to justify who I am.
Mhm. Mhm.
I defend that which needs no defense.
Mhm.
And I know for some empaths, It can feel like they're just being kind of hard edged in the way that they present themselves to others. You're not being hard edged. You're just simply having what I call positive stubbornness. Narcissists can have their stubbornness. Well, you know what? I'm going to have a certain stubbornness too. And my
Mhm.
stubbornness says, I refuse to let you take over my personality. And I
Right.
refuse to buy into your offensive statements calmly, confidently. I'm going to stand on who I am, and I'm quite okay with that.
Mm-hmm. I learned to just repeat the same thing if I was being put on the defensive about something, and just to say the same phrase over and over. Maybe it's about being on time for a therapy appointment. I like to be on time. We're a couple. We should go together. Blah, 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 blah. I like to be on time. It's polite to be on time. I like to be on time. Just,
Yeah.
almost gray rock, just quiet, calm composure, like Dr. Carter says.
Laura, you probably haven't had this experience much at all, but in my 40 years, one of the things that I don't like about what I've had to do in my counseling practice is sometimes I'm asked to go to court.
Yes.
And let's suppose, and I'm willing to do it because of the person that I'm working with. But let's suppose that there's a dispute about whether someone is worthy to have parental custody and all.
Right.
And the narcissist is just going to want to pummel them, and so they bring it in front of a judge, and they try to make that person feel awful about who they are. Well, one of the things that I have decided when I'm in court, I'm going to be asked a lot of questions from the opposing side. And I've got one side that's trying to make me look like a genius, and I have another side that's trying to make me look like some sort of
Right.
monkey. And what I do is I get up there and I just state, here's my explanation. And
Mhm.
then when the attorney on the other side wants to just pummel me, it's like, well, but I still stand on my
Mhm.
explanation. And
Mhm.
one of the things that other attorney can't do is they can't rattle me
Right.
unless I let them. It's like, well, they want to twist my words, but if I just kind of say, I'm going to give you my very best explanation. If they want to come back around and try to make me look like an idiot, I know that's your game, but I'm not buying into that. Well, in our own personal life, you can feel like you're on the defense with a prosecuting attorney.
Mhm.
And rather than feeling like you've got to somehow or another be intimidated by them, I go back to why defend that which needs no defense.
Mhm.
Now, once you begin to develop this mindset with boundaries, then I'm hoping you as an empath can go to this next thing and say, I'm going to be pretty specific
Mhm.
about who I am, just as you were mentioning, Laura.
Mhm.
This is what I will accept. This is
Mhm.
what I will not accept. Here's what I am willing to go along with. Here's what I'm not willing to go along with. And
Mhm.
if the narcissist predictably wants to go into rage or anger or blaming or undercutting, it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what I'm not willing to do.
Willing to
It's what
do.
I call the nonetheless approach. Well, okay, that's
Right.
what you are, but nonetheless, I'm sticking with what I believe anyway.
Right.
And so you stay specific about who you are. And the whole name of the game with the narcissist is they want to just blur your boundaries like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, they do. Mhm.
Uh, Now that next one, Laura, expect pushback. They will push back on you.
They will. That's why I was giving you guys just a little heads up. I don't want to say a warning, because it just is what it is, but they are going to push back when you
Right.
become more assertive, and you're just speaking about your basic needs most of the time. It's not like you're asking for the moon.
Right.
They're going to push back because they're losing control, and narcissists have to have control.
Well, and again, one of the vulnerabilities, I was going to say weaknesses, that's not the right word. One of the vulnerabilities an empath can have is they want to explain to the narcissist why they do what they do because they're interested in the relational dimension.
Yes. Yes.
When you realize, though, you're dealing with that narcissistic person, I have my three no's that I put out there: no pleading, no coaxing,
I like
no
that.
convincing.
Hmm.
I'm not going to plead my case. I've already set my stipulation. I'm not going to try to coax them into going along. I don't feel
Yeah.
like I have to convince. I'm just going to go ahead and follow through. If you like it, that would be wonderful. If you don't like it, I'm not very good trying to be somebody other than what I am. Therefore, I'm just going to be what I am.
Mhm.
Okay.
I like those no's. I just wrote them down.
Right. Now, what this does mean for the empath is you're going to need to narrow your sphere of influence.
Mhm.
Going back to our beginning portion here in our presentation, narcissists have such healthy characteristics that they bring. And what they want is for others to say, I'd like to join you. When you're dealing with a narcissist, though, it's like I'm dealing with a petulant little child that doesn't know how
Yes.
to do relationships very well. Okay, well, you're not going to be on my inner circle then. And I'm going to reserve my helpfulness and my understanding and my compassion for people that are not going to exploit me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as a result, it may be that you'll just relegate that narcissistic person to someone who's on the outside looking in, and it's going to feel unnatural for you because you want to be so inclusive. That's part of what empaths do. But you'll need to go ahead and acknowledge this is just not someone that I can engage with well. That being the case, I'm going to save my emotional energy and investment
Mhm.
towards people or for people who do know how to do it well.
And Dr. Carter, this is how many of us think is that we're givers, we're healers. Those of us has such extraordinary amounts of empathy. And we think, well, if I love him enough, if I love her enough, I can fix them, I can heal them, I can change them. Love changes people. And you guys, it's just not the case when it comes to a narcissist. It's just not.
Yeah, and that's a sad realization, but I underscore what Laura's saying. What works well with healthy people doesn't work well with narcissistic individuals, and
Mhm.
so you have to adjust accordingly.
And
So,
I always say to make it more positive. So you have like different lanes in your life. Once you get the narcissist out of that lane is wide open for you to meet healthy people. Once you get have that toxic person gone or on a back burner, if you will, you'll be pleasantly surprised when that lane is open how empathetic, wonderful people come into your life because you've created space for them. So,
we're going to go to questions here, Madison, in just a second. But I recall this is quite a number of years ago now. A longtime friend of mine had gone through a divorce, and about 6 or 8 months, something like that, after it had been finalized, I mentioned to him, it's so nice to see the old you return. You
oh,
seem more relaxed
yes.
and easygoing. And his comment was so interesting. He said, really? Because he said, in other words, I thought I was doing a pretty good job of covering up my tension. And many times you're so working so hard to try to be a helpful person and a good person that you don't even realize that it's just made you a shell of who you are. But Laura, to your point, it's like, when I get away from those exploitive kind of people, then that decency does start coming back around and people
Mhm,
are going to see it.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so let's be pleased with that and let's make sure that that counts for something. So
Exactly.
now, you don't see those of you who are watching. You don't see Madison there, but Madison is our excellent person, our IT person that's helping us here. Do you have some questions, Madison, that people have thrown up here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go through some of
Perfect. Okay, here is the first one. I am an empath married for 17 years to a covert, vulnerable narcissist. I am starting divorce proceedings. How can I keep from getting sucked into gaslighting and passive aggressive behavior that I know is coming?
them. Okay, now you mentioned the covert and vulnerable narcissist. That's its own package that's so intriguing. Is that a nice way to put it? I've had people ask me, is the vulnerable narcissist, isn't that just the same thing as a covert narcissist? And the answer is, well, there's overlap, but it's not entirely the same thing.
Mhm.
A covert narcissist, in fact, Laura and I, our next webinar is going to be
Yes.
on the passive aggressive covert narcissist. The covert narcissist can kind of take the attitude that says, I don't need to explain anything to you. And so they can give the silent treatment, they can withdraw, to be punishing through those kind of means. But the vulnerable narcissist takes that even further.
Mhm.
Uh, they tend to be the ultimate victim like, oh, life has given me such a bum steer, and they can suck all the energy out of the room when they're there. They could hardly ever be satisfied. If you say, well, it's a lovely day today, isn't the sun shining? Their
Mhm.
comment is like, yeah, but tomorrow it's going to storm. You know, the
Yeah,
Debbie
yeah.
Downer. You remember that character?
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, exactly. And so these are individuals that just wear you out with their insecurity and their own anxiety and their depressive approach towards life. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about the vulnerable narcissist. And so with these individuals, what you don't want to do is you don't want to get caught up thinking, well, I have to make sure that they're feeling better, and I have to make sure that they feel included, because empaths, that's what they want to do.
Right.
But the vulnerable narcissist is like, no, I'm the best depressed person you ever met. I'm the best anxious person you ever met, and nobody is going to pull me out of it. I'm that good. Nobody can figure me out.
Right.
And
Right.
so, as the narcissist, you kind of have to say, okay, that being the case, I'll stop trying to figure you out, but I'm going to move on, and I'm not going to get drugged down into the ditch with that
Yes.
person that just
Yes.
lives in the ditch, and that's their significance.
Hmm.
What else you got, Maddie?
Alrighty, next question. My experience with narcissism is that my mother was a narcissist. She passed away recently, and my only sibling, my sister, is also a narcissist. Do children of narcissistic mothers all become narcissistic?
All right,
Well,
Laura, go for it.
do you think I'm a narcissist? I'm not. I am the biggest empath you will ever meet. And I was raised by a narcissistic mother who was visiting this past weekend. I I think people either go one way or the other. Thank goodness I had the healthy balance of a father. And I don't even know if I'd call it healthy, you guys, because I mean, really, he still is a doormat for my mother. He had triple bypass surgery recently. And he said, I've got to get better so I can take care of your mom because she's experiencing some dementia. I'm like, you just had your chest spot open, Dad. Let's focus on your health so you can get better, not so you can take care of her. Because she started flipping out because he's always been the caretaker of her, obviously. So I think as long as there's one healthy parent or one healthy, it's what I learned in years of therapy, or one healthy person in that person's life, that it's not necessary that that person's going to become a narcissist. Greater chance, yeah, maybe, but not. My brother is an
Yeah.
empath. I'm an empath. My dad's an empath. Dr. Carter, what do you think?
Well, see, let's go back to something we mentioned at the early part of our webinar here, and that is some individuals just have a natural inclination towards empathy.
Yeah.
Some people are more soft in that direction, where others they're more, General Patton, and the large and in charge, forceful kind of person, or and that's just the way they're wired.
Right.
And so it may be that you're that person who has a natural inclination toward empathy, just because that's just what is your inclination. Uh, Unfortunately, if you get with a narcissistic parent, then sometimes you can actually pick up on their characteristics. I
Mm.
put out a video within the last couple of weeks: is narcissism contagious? And the answer is yes, it can be, in the sense that if somebody is highly selfish and highly manipulative, before you know it, you find yourself doing the same thing in reverse.
Mhm.
But the deeper you go into that empathy and the emotional intelligence that goes along with it, you can come to the determination, hey, wait a minute. That's somebody who wants to have an influence over me. That's somebody who responds to people in a very unhealthy manner. That doesn't match with who I am. And that doesn't match. We talk about going back to the basics. That doesn't match with my basics. And so you stick with who you are. And so if you have a narcissistic parent, which I know many of you have had, it doesn't mean, well, you're destined to be narcissistic yourself. Instead, what you can do is you can look at that person and say, there's an excellent illustration of what I can't afford to be. because I don't want to go into all of the unhealthiness and the dysfunction that is required to maintain that narcissistic pattern. Thanks, but no thanks. Not interested. I've got much better things to do with my life. And Laura, like you're saying, same thing with me. I'm going to live to my dying day trying to figure out what is the healthy personality? What does it look like? What does it require of me? And then gladly lean into that.
Right. And just by asking that question indicates to me, and I'm sure Dr. Carter, that you don't have a propensity toward narcissism, because you're here in this webinar. I mean, I don't think that we'd have a narcissist pay to join this webinar to learn about narcissism, because
Great point.
Yeah. So.
All right, Maddie, what do we got?
Alrighty, so here's the next one. Because I have been abused because of these qualities, I sometimes don't want to show my best qualities, especially around my family. This hides the best part of me. How can I reconnect with these qualities while not setting myself up for hurt and further shutting down / bitterness?
Okay. Well, sure enough, the implication of this is we do have to be judicious. And rather than thinking, well, I know that I bring healthy ingredients to the table, and surely these people in front of me would want to join me. Well, maybe they won't. And there's kind of a pessimistic thought that I bring to relationships, and that is make room for junk in your relationships. Expect a certain amount of unhealthiness that's there. Now, I know that that doesn't sound good. And in fact, it can sound, what's the right word? Skeptical or even cynical. That's the word I was looking for. And yet, I just remind myself, I live in a broken world. And there are plenty of people out there that truly don't really think very deeply. I have a brother who's a forensic psychologist, and his whole thing is that he works with criminals and does all the psych research and all like that and he said, there's just some people, they're just so predisposed towards the wrong behavior that you just have to make room for the fact that that's where they are. And I personally, and he and I have had many discussions about it. Well, how many people do you think out there are truly healthy? And my conclusion is, roughly 20, maybe 25% of the population truly makes a point of saying, I want to go to Team Healthy, as we have here on the screen. That's fairly low. There are a lot of people who are, I call it, they're at the 50% point on the spectrum of narcissism and beyond. And even those who may not be that far down on narcissism, maybe they don't really put a whole lot of thought into what that healthy way of looking. They're just not insightful or intuitive enough to do that. But those who do may find themselves in the minority. And that being the case, you want to reserve your relational efforts and skills for people that know what to do. And it does say, just pick and choose wisely. Empaths need to maintain a certain patience, getting to know people from a personal point of view. And as Laura mentioned a little earlier, you don't want to just rush right in, assuming that this is going to be somebody that wants to join me in my healthy and emotionally intelligent style.
Yes.
Some will, a lot won't.
Let them earn your trust. Let those family members or friends earn your trust. Sit back and wait before you share anything or give them your best qualities. You can still be kind, but before you really listen and help and give, you know what I mean? Just sit back a little bit and let them earn your trust first.
Laura, I've had cases where let's say you have a 45-year-old person who has been through a divorce. It was terrible. And now they're with somebody new. And then that person might come in and say, I met this person. And on our very first time of meeting each other, we stayed up till 3:00 in the morning, just talking about all sorts of really personal kind of things. It was just absolutely wonderful. And I'm thinking, well, okay. But sometimes that could be a bit of a red flag, just to put it in kind of crass terms. When I first meet someone, I don't feel the need to take all my clothes off and say, here I am, take advantage of me. And then the same way, I'm not going to strip myself emotionally either. and
Right.
say, here I am, I'm just going to reveal everything there is to reveal. Sometimes you just kind of have to take it slow and easy,
Right.
and let it build, and let the signs show themselves. And even then, you just kind of want to go with the notion that says, I'm not in a huge hurry, I'm not that desperate. And the more you have a confidence in who you are, then the less inclined you're going to be towards a codependent pattern of engaging with other individuals.
Mhm, mhm. Great points. Thank you for those, for sure. All right, Miss Madison, you got another one?
I do. All right, so I am divorcing a narcissist. He will not respond to any paperwork and keeps dragging it out forever. How do you suggest I handle this if I am not supposed to plead, coax, or convince?
Great question. When I say don't plead, no pleading, no coaxing, no convincing, notice what I didn't say. I didn't say don't have standards,
Mhm.
or don't have stipulations. I'm just not going to plead. In other words, when you're dealing with that person, let's say you're sending them text messages, or you see them in public and you say, please, please, please come on, coordinate with me. Okay. Well, they're not going to. That's part of, I'm sure, part of the reason why you divorced them in the first place. With narcissists, there's one thing that tends to work, if there's any going to be anything that works at all, and that is consequences.
Yes.
Give them consequences. And I'm going to go ahead and say up front, the legal system, and she's going through a divorce. The legal system kind of has a built-in, what's the right word? Allowance for abusers to abuse people legally. Um, and I can't stand it when I see it, because sure enough, you put your stipulations out there, you put your efforts out there to say, here's what I'm willing to take, and all like that. And you kind of go back and forth. The narcissist is going to do everything they can to just twist you up like a pretzel. But what you do is you have to just stop pleading your case, and you have to go straight to the courts and the judge. And if they're in contempt, you go ahead and file the contempt.
Mhm.
But you let the narcissist wrangle it out, and it can be a mess, because, like I say, in many cases, the legal system is set up to where that person who wants to ask the ridiculous questions gets to do so. And
Mhm.
so you have to hang in there, but don't plead your case, but do set stipulations, do set consequences, be willing to have firmness with the courts if that's what's required, and then hold your ground and stick to the letter of the law.
Mhm.
Uh,
My whole
and
book,
that's,
that second
that's
book I published, Dr. Carter, Girl Get Out, whether you're a man or a woman, it talks about how to get through and navigate things like what you're talking about when it comes to courts, and how to fight through your attorney. And you can't give up. You just have to keep going and have your boundaries, and then you let it go. You just say, nope, the papers are due April 30th and you don't sign them, then yes, we will be in court. Oh, well, I might be able to get them by then. I don't know. I'll see you in court April 30th if you haven't signed the papers. It's just cut and dry, black and white.
no pleading, no coaxing, no convincing,
Mhm.
but stipulations.
Right.
And to that person that's asking the question, I'm going to go ahead and give the caveat and say, you're in one of the most difficult situations
Yes.
you can possibly be in, because these individuals, they're playing power games with the court. And because of individual rights and all like that, they can get away with it for a while. But what you have to do is you have to remain firm, and you have to maintain your resolve. And then if at all possible, make them pay through consequences. But then we could get even deeper into parental alienation and all like that. I mean, it is one of the most unhealthy places that narcissism can play out.
Yeah. It was one of the toughest years of my life. And then on the other side, you'll find peace and joy. But you just hang in there. If you're a woman or a man of faith, you've got to just rely on God or the universe, whatever you believe in, and you can get through it. Just hold tight and stick to your boundaries. Like Dr. Carter says, no pleading, no coaching, no convincing.
All right. How about it, Madison?
Alrighty, so empath or people pleaser, what is the difference?
Ooh, Dr. Carter,
Well,
take this one.
Funny you mentioned that, because I want to do another one on the people pleaser, another one of our webinars. And so just kind of tune in. I'm not sure, but probably before the end of the year, we're going to be doing that. People pleasers, there's its own subtle manipulation that goes along with the people pleaser. The people pleaser is thinking, well, okay, here's what I'm going to do. If I can be the nicest person you've ever met, then maybe I can get you to go along with me. And so the empath is someone who has all of those healthy, understanding kind of skills, but the people pleaser is someone that actually, even though they tend to be extremely nice people, they can actually be thinking, well, there's got to be a way that I can work this situation. How can I do this? And so they allow themselves to get pulled into um, uh, efforts to try to force that person to go along with them through kindness and through friendliness, through helpfulness. And if that doesn't work, it's like, okay, let me think of something else. And so one of the things I coach people pleasers with is the idea that says, some people just can't be pleased. You can be an empath, but you don't have to be a people pleaser. And that's what that book, When Pleasing You is Killing Me, that's what it's all about. You can still be an empath, but also have boundaries. Whereas the people pleaser is somebody that has very blurred boundaries. The narcissist is trying to tell them what to do and how to live. The people pleaser is thinking, well, let me see if I can change your mind and get you to go with my style. And it's a push-pull kind of relationship that just keeps on going as long as you play the game. And it's its own unhealthiness. And so we're probably going to have to do a whole new webinar on that one somewhere down the
For
road.
sure.
It's fascinating to look at all of
Yep.
that. I have tons of material on that one too.
All right, Madison, you got another one? We have a few minutes left.
I do have another one. My sister is a narc and we are in our 60s, so this is long standing. How do I decide when it's worth it to state my opinion with her and when it is better to just let her control all the decisions? Currently, we own a cabin together and we'll be selling. She wants to handle it her way. Do I just let her control it all, even if I am better qualified? And when is it worth the stress?
What do you think, Laura?
Well, for me, I would look at the end result. If she's going to take most of the money or the proceeds from the property, I would encourage her and do your best to work on this sale 50-50 and split the proceeds 50-50. If she's an extremely manipulative or a malignant narcissist, I think that changes the game a little bit. I think you really just have to look at the end result as you make your decision, how to proceed, to fight for the right to be the one who, represents you both as sellers of this property, or if you're in real estate or whatever, or if you let her take charge. I would think about what the end result is. Dr. Carter?
Yeah, with the physical things like the use of the cabin and the sale of the cabin, exactly what Laura says. You just stick to the letter of the law and you go with it. I spoke with a woman who had two sisters, and one sister was about as pleasant and friendly and coordinated as could possibly be, and then the other sister was the one that ruined the family holidays, argued all the time, could never be pleased. Never saw a plan that she couldn't screw up, and had to take charge. And finally, after much discussion with the more difficult narcissistic sister, this woman decided, I'm not going to keep giving an emotional investment to someone who clearly doesn't want to do it the right way and in a healthy way. And so you don't want to do this with a sister, but sometimes you kind of have to draw that conclusion that says, I get it. What we have between you and me is going to be rather limited. There are other people who know what to do with the healthy ingredients that I bring to the equation, and I'm going to expend much more energy toward that. And if you, even if you're my sister, if you don't want to join with me on that, then I'm going to take it for what it is, and I'm going to move on with my own healthy initiatives leading the way. Thanks, but no thanks. Just the fact that you're a sister doesn't mean that you get to continue to abuse me. And then on the, like Laura was saying, on the physical things, we're just going to do a letter of the law kind of thing. And then we'll just let the relationship be what it is. And there's a grief that you may have, And there's
Yes.
sadness that you may have, but that doesn't mean that just because you're blood relatives that you have to say, here's my face, go ahead and keep slapping on it, because I don't want to have that happen.
Dr. Carter, my therapist asked me a
That's one of
question along these same lines that you're giving, this woman advice, and it's very good advice. He added one more thing to it, and he said, Laura, would you be friends with your mother if she weren't your mother? Ooh, I had to really think about that one, and guess what the answer was? No.
Yeah. And just because it's blood relatives doesn't mean they get a free pass. So, Madison, let's do one more question, okay?
Perfect. All right. So here is the last question. Is it okay to refuse to attend events like weddings, graduations, etc., when you know you'll be knee deep in the muck of narcissistic family dynamics?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Laura, you were pretty quick on that, and I was too. And my thing is like, sometimes it's not only okay, sometimes it's necessary.
Right.
If
There's
you have a
no
system that's
reason.
just
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. I'm passionate about
Well,
this.
what it means is there's an ideal that you'd like to have, that when we have family gatherings, we're all going to get together and sing Kumbaya and everything's going to be okay. But some families aren't quite that ideal. And if that's the case, whether it's a family reunion or a wedding or something like that, if it's just going to be one miserable kind of experience, you're not required to say, well, I guess I'll just go and get kicked in the teeth and go home and complain about it. You don't have to do that.
And you're
Uh,
not required to give a reason. Oh, I'm
yeah,
so sorry. I can't make it that weekend.
yeah,
Oh, we'd love to be there. We can't make it.
yeah.
No reason necessary. And they may become, have the narcissistic injury and become victims when well, everyone should want to be at this event because it's about us. No, they
Yeah.
should. No.
Well,
No,
okay.
well,
I still have other plans. My plan is I'm sitting on my back porch,
yeah.
and that's what my plan
With a
is.
cold, sweet tea. Too bad.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
something stronger. Too bad.
Yeah. All right, sports fans, that's going to do it for this one. And I'm so pleased that you've joined us here today with our Empath and the Narcissist webinar. Now that you've purchased this or been included in this, then you're going to be able to hold on to it, as this is going to be something that you can just keep and you can go back and reference it again. We're going to be coming up in the next few weeks with other of
Yeah.
these kind of webinars. I'm so pleased to have you here with us. And Laura and I, we both just putting these things together. It's good therapy for us. And
Yes.
we hope that it has a good sense of helpfulness for you. Thanks for letting us be a part of your journey with you.
Yes, thank you. And Maddie, I don't know if we can look at the rest of the questions later. Don't forget to join Team Healthy, which is, kind of our private inner circle that's part of YouTube. It's only $7 a month. And I will on Mondays, I go live on Mondays. I will try to get through some of those questions if there's any way that the ones that we did not get to today, because it would take hours. So I'll do my best to do
That's
that.
part of our Team Healthy. And in fact, I actually keep a list of questions that people have. I'm going to be doing mine on Wednesday, 11 o'clock Central Time, US. And those of you that want to join us, jump in there with the Team Healthy membership, and we'll continue this Q&A part too.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being with us.
Thank you. All right. Have a good week, everybody.
We'll see you next time.